Hi, my name is Nelson Pena from IMC International. Partnering with Lucas Copy Bank from the Swiss Financial TV, we have today a very special guest, Gregory Thomas, who is the Regional Director for the Asian Pacific region at IMC. We would like to discuss today a topic around China. Hi, Greg. It's not too late to get today into the Chinese market, according to you?
I don't think so. Really, while year-on-year GDP growth has slowed, China is still one of the fastest growing economies in the world. However, the economy has matured, and with this maturity, the scope of inbound direct investment has changed. If we look over the last year, it's actually expanded. CP Thailand's acquisition of Ping An Insurance from HSBC was one of the biggest M&A deals in Asia Pacific in 2013. Also, more than 1,000 hotels on the mainland were owned and operated by international hotel groups. At the same time, heavy manufacturing has stepped up their investments in China. Private equity activity has increased. And consumer products also. Danone invested 325 million euro into China in 2013. So I think if I look at it, there are a few sectors that maybe people didn't think about in China in the past that they should start to think about going forward.
What are the key sectors do you think are really key to get invested today?
Well, I think if I looked at it, the property sector, the real estate sector is really on the verge of a bubble. And we've heard about the liquidity crunch in China. So I think there's going to be a pullback from real estate. But sectors such as industrials, consumer electronics, which had healthy inbound investment in 2013. High technology, especially as China becomes more and more of an R&D center in certain sectors. Healthcare, China is aging, and they're going to need access to better hospitals, pharmaceuticals, drugs, and so on. Financial services would be another area. Also energy, power, and then don't forget telecommunications, media, entertainment. I think they're all sectors that are ready for growth.
Yeah. If we consider the development in Asia in the 60s till the 80s, starting with the Japanese, then the Koreans, what makes the situation different compared to China?
Well, I would say China is different, number one, because of the scale. China today, it's been, 30 years since the opening up in 1979. And it's really, really grown. The middle class, in terms of a Western standard, I believe is more than 100 million people already. And that might be a conservative estimate. If you compare that to Korea and Japan, at today's population levels, they only have 180 million people combined. So the scale in China is that much different. I think also the size of China, in terms of the opportunities for the market and the continued opportunities as the country develops, not just on the shoreline, but going west as well. So I think that offers another aspect. There are cultural differences between China, Korea, and Japan, which would be another reason. And I think also you're going to start to see, and this might be one area where China is lagging today, and it might just be from the West that we're not aware of it, as Chinese brands start to come out into the world, not only to become leaders in their markets in China, but also to become leaders in the global space.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Another point which I have observed here, also traveling a lot in Europe or in the United States, in South America, in Africa, we see now, I would say, a reverse situation where a lot of Chinese companies are coming over. They are getting into chain ventures. They are taking over other companies. What are Chinese companies looking for when they want to expand, according to your opinion, from Hong Kong?
Well, I think your observation is correct. The Smithfields deal, I think, was one of the biggest global M&A deals. It was just under $5 billion last year. From the discussions that I've had with decision makers on this subject, it would appear that there are 4 or maybe 5 motivations for mainland companies to seek investment opportunities overseas. First, resources. This is primarily true of state-owned enterprises, as they're seeking to secure natural resources around the world. But it's also true of large private companies as well, especially in the chemical and steel industry. Second one would be to expand their market. And going back to what I spoke about earlier, there's a whole crop of Chinese brands that are just starting to come up. Some of them we already know globally, and others are starting to appear regionally in Asia Pacific and making their way to Europe and the U.S. These would include companies such as Li Ning, which is Chinese, the China equivalent to Nike. Lenovo, obviously they've become well established on the global scene. Huawei, Gree, Haier, just to name a few. And increasingly, these companies are looking beyond their home market, and they're looking into Europe, the U.S., South Asia, Southeast Asia, because that's where they see the growth. Third would be strategic assets and technology. And I think this is not unlike what companies around the world are doing. They're looking at acquisitions that make sense for their long-term business model. How can they acquire a startup that has a new technology that will help them in the marketplace going forward?
Yeah, let me just ask another question, which I think it's very valuable. It's about the cultural differences. And we have seen this with the Japanese, with the US expanding, or the Koreans. How does Chinese companies handle the difference in aspects of culture? How, I would say, are successful? How do they handle this?
I would say it's very much a work in process. There are some difficulties there. Obviously, Western companies, especially the Western companies that have been acquired by Chinese companies, are used to doing things in a slightly different way. And what you're starting to see now is coming out of China are some of I spoke earlier about some of the brands, and they're well developed within China, but you're starting to see that second tier come out as well. And these companies, especially in the second tier, are much less worldly than, let's say, the first tier Chinese companies. So when they come into a new market, if they go into the US or if they go into Europe, there's going to be a culture shock, just like there would be for an American company or a European company coming into China. It's a challenge for them because I think, comparing to, my American bias, looking at American companies, but even for European companies, I take Philips, for example, where they have actively developed local management in their Asian operation. It's a challenge for the Chinese companies because they lack that infrastructure today. So what they need is a helping hand to try to get them through that transition period. They also need somebody to work with their expatriate managers that are coming into the European market, to the American market, to get them up to speed on how they can be successful. In this case, I think that's something that they can learn from their Japanese counterparts, especially in the US, if you look at Toyota or potentially Honda, and what they've done. But that's been a 10, 15, 20-year process. I think what it comes back to is they're going to need some help along the way, and that's one area where we might be able to offer value.
Okay. Thomas, Gregory, thanks a lot for your time. Has been a pleasure to have you here. All the best to you, and greetings to Hong Kong. Bye-bye. So this was Let's Talk About Business. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you later. Bye-bye.